This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And this week he's taking another look at the weapons from Respawn's shooter, Apex Legends.
This is looking pretty conventional for this style of game. Proportions-wise, it's pretty close to the Fostech Origin 12, which we are lucky enough now to have an example of.
Let us know what other games or guns you'd like to see Jonathan break down, and make sure to subscribe for more of this kind of content on the channel, including Loadout, which takes an in-depth look at the most iconic firearms in gaming. Right, let's take a look at the weapons from Apex Legends.
Right, first impression was very, very bulky. Like you need massive hands just to wrap your hand around the pistol grip. Bolt handle looks quite conventional, except that it doesn't seem to lock into anything. I mean, maybe this, if this even works like a conventional firearm, maybe it has lugs somewhere that just lock in and you don't need the handle to be, handle doesn't necessarily have to come to rest in this position. It could stay in that position, but it goes against a little bit tradition in terms of bolt action rifles, but this is no traditional bolt action rifle, because I've already seen some sort of weird ripcord arrangement that seems to spin up something and make it glow and increase the damage of the shot. So we're well beyond my expertise here into the realms of science fiction. I'm not sure about the little winged creature. He looks quite cute. Not usually a feature of a firearm, but I think that's probably incidental. Okay, having seen some gameplay now, I think actually this is a bullpup with the magazine located behind the grip, and then there's effectively it's not quite a magazine, it's more like a charging port in front of the trigger that you're connecting to, charging up for the additional shot, and then just ripping out the cable. A bit like you might do if you're in a hurry and you need to get your phone off charge. So not really that conventional. The bolt action is conventional, the high damage, low rate of fire, typical first-person shooter stuff. And the general silhouette of the weapon is pretty straightforward, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Okay, quite a striking looking firearm, if indeed it is a firearm. I think it is. Magazine fed, recoil operated, or some other conventional system. In fact, it even has what looks like a fairly conventional laser/light module attached in front of the trigger guard. It's very anime. It looks actually like the rear portion might deploy as a shoulder stock, making it sort of compact machine pistol. We have a very rakish angle for the magazine, not optimal for feed by any means, and it carries the rounds to a place where in a conventional arrangement with a reciprocating bolt or slide, they can't get picked up and fed into the chamber. Carrying your cartridges straight to the back of the gun isn't a winning idea, but it makes for a very striking looking firearm with a sort of thumb hole receiver frame. I do like the look of this thing. I'm intrigued to see how the buttstock, if indeed there's a buttstock, actually works. I can almost hear some friends and contacts and people online crying out in horror who are not fans of reciprocating cocking handles that move when the weapon fires, because they can get caught on your hand or something, or on a barrier and stop the gun from working. So the usual complaint goes. Here we have two of them that reciprocate. The Scorpion is probably the closest parallel, but that doesn't have two barrels. This thing has two barrels. The charging handles, which stick out a fair way, do a little dance. They alternate, and it's quite visually striking and interesting to see happen, but would be a bit of a problem. It's quite a bulky little gun already, so making it extra wide with two charging handles isn't the best design choice. Firing independently makes a certain amount of sense from the point of view of recoil control, because if you're firing both shots at the same time, well, that would be like the Arsenal pistol from a few years ago, where you're firing two 45 caliber rounds with each shot and therefore get the recoil at the same time. I guess that's the logic to having it staggered. In terms of gameplay, really no reason why it couldn't just be one barrel firing at the same rate out of the same barrel. It's a design choice that they've made, aesthetic choice really. Now, the old lever action, we can't seem to get away from it. Perhaps we don't want to, because it is very cool. 3030, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is a real cartridge type. We don't actually have many 3030 lever actions in this collection. This is a Model 55 Winchester. It looks nothing like the gun in this game, really at all, other than the basic fact that it has a lever. As you can see, the bolt is a lot more conspicuous when it comes back on this, because it has to come back that far to cock the hammer and indeed to clear the back of the next round that's being brought up by this cartridge lifter from the tube magazine under barrel. So it has to come out that far. The bolt on the game gun doesn't seem to come out very far at all. From what I've seen, this isn't just a name. This is an attempt to design a futuristic sci-fi type lever action that still fires the venerable old, probably centuries old at this point, 3030 cartridge. So I quite like it, even though it seems a little bit wild that you'd still be using something so slow in this kind of setting. This is a cool fictional design, I think. It's a little bit FN Scar, it's a little bit Chris Vector, especially the design around the magazine housing, although in this case, it's a full-size sort of battle rifle cartridge, so that's why it's so deep. With the Vector, it's hiding a special mechanism, but aesthetically speaking, it does look a bit that way. I get sort of Weta Workshop sci-fi movie gun vibes from the guns in this game, especially this one, and maybe a little bit Colonial Marines, probably just because of the green contrasting with the black. I'm not sure about the technical aspects of this. It looks like it could be made to function. The magazine catch is in a really weird place, not ergonomically recommended. Looks like some sort of energy or plasma, well, energy, plasma is energy, but some kind of pseudo projectile, but it's really energy type system, and with a big drum power supply / magazine that lives in the middle of the gun that you slap in from the side and gets ejected out the side as well. Needless to say, it doesn't really relate to anything in reality, but it's something new. It's a design I haven't seen before. We do get a ramping up here. So we've seen, especially machine guns before, where the rate will increase to the point where it heats up or something. Here it's bursts, and they are ramping up rate of fire each time you fire, something to do with the energy charge or something. Again, not if you get changes in rate of fire with a real conventional firearm, something's wrong with the real conventional firearm that you're using. This makes its own internal sense in that if it's got more energy building up somehow, then a steadily increasing rate of fire might not make ultimate sense, but it makes sense for the gun. All right, I wasn't sure if this was some sort of assault rifle at first, but realizing that there's no magazine well, and then seeing the arrangement of this and then how it loads, it's obviously a shotgun. In fact, we get a sort of loading a single round through ejection port and then loading up the rest into the tube below. So quite a conventional design. It's just really, really chunky, and it functions pretty much like a modern self-loading shotgun, semi-automatic shotgun. Unusual design at the back. Looking at the back end, we've got a thumb hole and a sort of cutlass style trigger guard bow thing, which isn't great. So I mean, a thumb hole stock is fine for sort of sniper rifles or something, not great for something dynamic like a shotgun or an automatic rifle. If you need to grab it quickly, you want to just get your hand around the grip. You don't want to have to get caught up on that. That's a relatively minor thing. But then if you're having to then get your fingers into the knuckle bow as well, it's a bit busy design-wise and ergonomically not ideal. It has this muzzle brake style muzzle device that you can see very clearly with the hip fire point of impact reticle. It shows you where your individual projectiles have struck, that it's actually flattening the spread. I haven't got a duckbill attachment to show you, but back in the Vietnam War, shotguns would have attached a triangular shaped flattened steel muzzle device that would constrain the pattern. So you get a tighter pattern in this plane, same width in this plane, if that makes sense. So you're getting more value for money at, well, waist height. So you have more chance of hitting center mass and doing some serious damage. And this is a science fiction interpretation of that effect. This gun looking pretty conventional, nicely designed, but fairly sort of understandably a light machine gun, and a general sort of short barrel, belt fed style. You can tell what it's supposed to be. It's like a sci-fi LMG. But where this gets interesting is when it's fired. So it is chambering and firing somewhat conventional ammunition, brass cased apparently. But those individual cartridges seem to contain a charge of energy, or maybe the propellant is projecting some. I don't know. I suspect it's meant to be an energy weapon that uses energy cartridges. Blue muzzle flash and a weird sort of crackly charge as the rate of fire ramps up. It's one of those machine guns where you get that steadily increasing rate of fire, which affects spread and controllability, but also obviously damage. If you can control it, you're going to get more damage on target. So there's more going on to this than just a mini-me in space. Well, it's not in space, but you know what I mean. This is looking pretty conventional for this style of game. Drum-fed automatic shotgun, I think. I haven't seen it in use yet, but I can see a picture of it on my screen. Proportions-wise, it's pretty close to the Fostech Origin 12, which we are lucky enough now to have an example of. Very sci-fi looking piece of kit, especially with a short barrel. If you look at this thing in detail, though, it is actually very different. So every little detail of this thing is different to the Origin 12. So notably the separate magazine housing that's on this, well, there sort of is one on this as well, but it's a different shape. Underneath this cool sci-fi exterior is essentially an AK style system. This is essentially the AK top cover. This is essentially an AKM receiver underneath. And here's your trunnion block at the front. Barely recognizable, but at the heart of this thing is an AK, whereas that's not the case here. Another big difference here, on the Origin 12, we have a cocking handle up front on the left. On the game gun, we've got a cocking handle, similar sort of cocking handle further back. It's on the receiver, but it doesn't seem to get used. After the magazine's been inserted, it looks like the weapon is getting pumped. It does look like there is a separate pump grip on the front, which this gun doesn't have, because it doesn't need it, because it has a conventional sort of setup there. Really wacky bolt on the Origin 12, by the way, but it's essentially an AK system. This looks quite a bit like a couple of the other guns in the game. I don't mean that as a complaint. I think having a consistent design language, especially if the guns are supposed to be made by the same company, it makes a lot of sense. You know, in universe, why would they look radically different? So the lines of the guns, the triangular shaped sort of lightning panels that are sort of machined into them. I think if this was a real gun in the real world, as I often find myself saying, the magazine might be a bit over-designed. It's got attachments, effectively. The magazine body that goes into the gun, there's no reason why that shouldn't be the same width and length and whatever else all the way down. We do see things like Magpul style base plates to help you pull the magazine out of your kit. This seems to go beyond that though, and it's more to make the magazine fit the overall design aesthetic. Another take on our old friend, the FN P90, albeit it's quite different. Obvious design cues that carry over are what's now a sort of carry handle. It's actually more like a miniature G36 arrangement with what looks like the side folding cocking handle of the G36 running inside. In the P90, of course, it's part of the magazine housing effectively, but it immediately makes your brain think P90. The biggest thing that does, of course, is this this arrangement here. Here, though, this is a bit more like the Hera Arms AR-15 series of rifles, where they have a foregrip that looks like more so like this than P90, and then a thumb hole buttstock as well. So maybe they're referencing that. Critically, in terms of P90 comparisons, it's effectively using the ejection port of the P90 with its internal dust cover, so stuff doesn't go up inside the ejection port. But on this, it's purely projecting spent cases. Here, the similar arrangement is for inserting a magazine. So it's almost like they looked at that and went, what if that took a magazine and we had a conventional feed arrangement coming into the breech back here. Something we can easily see, thanks to all the guns in the game have a visual or visible round counter. Something we can easily pick up on is the 5-round burst. That's pretty unusual. There are people who speculate in an educated fashion that 3-round burst is about the worst you could possibly have. 2 might be enough to hold the weapon on target for both to hit. 5, say, might be enough to be able to bring it back down. 3, 10s, so people say, and having shot a little bit myself in that area, I tend to agree. First shot's on target and second and third are off. What I'm getting at is, although it's not very real world, 5-round burst might just work, especially in something as short and controllable as a P90. I could be hallucinating, but I thought the magazine, which is probably about that deep, had what looked like sort of miniature rifle cartridges, and more like the 5.7. It's really pistol class, but it's like a miniature rifle cartridge. But the brass that's flying out of the gun is little stumpy 9mm or something even shorter than that, actually, looking at it. So I'm not sure if the cases being ejected are wrong. This is kind of dressed up with some sci-fi aesthetics, but at its heart, it's a self-loading pistol, fully automatic pistol with a conventional reciprocating slide. It's just got an extension to the frame that allows you to mount a sight forward of the ejection port. This setup is a bit more reminiscent of an old school competition pistol with a rail mounted into the frame, arching over the slide, to which you would mount a red dot or even a telescopic sight, depending on what discipline you're shooting. So in a way, it's a sort of throwback, but it does look very modern. No hint of how it functions, except that there doesn't appear to be any mechanical lockup. It looks like it works through blowback without a seal, without a locked breech. It's just a game at the end of the day. We do have quite a bit of detail of the breech and the magazine below when the slide is opened. That's all good. The only other thing to say is full auto pistols are nearly always a terrible idea because you're going to miss with most of your shots. There are some exceptions. The Beretta 93R with its burst mechanism. Yeah, and anything with a burst mechanism and a shoulder stock, well, basically you've just got a small shoulder weapon there. Firing freehand, full automatic, like a Glock 18. There are people who have mastered that, absolutely, and they would be very effective with that weapon. Most people do not do that. And then in the real world, they're only ever really used for something like a VIP protection role, where you just need lots of bullets between you and the attacker, and then you get the hell away. Thank you for watching. More guns from Apex Legends. I hope you'll see us again on this channel next week. We've got our own channel at the Royal Armouries on YouTube that you might want to check out if you haven't already. Back in the real world, we also have an event coming up on the weekend of the 11th of March. I'll be there on the 11th. There are tickets available via our website if you'd like to check that out. If you can't make it, or you'd rather just keep watching the videos, we love that you do that as well. We'll see you again next time.